My journey with self-love has been one with many ups and many downs. I can confidently say that I love myself, and that is such a wonderfully freeing and invigorating thing to say. It is something that I've yearned for so long, and to actually believe in it as well. It's something that is worth the journey and it's worth the effort, and I want to talk about some of the things that I've done that have helped me in my self-love journey. That have helped me fall in love with myself, and I hope they can be insightful to you. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The way my approach has been to self-love and what's been the most powerful and impactful when it comes to approaching my journey is I kind of try to put myself in the shoes of my dream person. Now, I'm technically with my dream person, my boyfriend. I love him so much, and he's the love of my life. But my dream person in like this idealistic version of reality where everyone was perfect and no one had flaws according to my own judgment or standard. You can write this down in like a notepad and a Notion page, it really doesn't matter, and really become super specific. Exactly who they would be, exactly how they would act, how that plays into your love language, how that plays into their actions when it comes to approaching you and your love language. Because in the end, self-love and falling in love with yourself is really exactly that. It is falling in love with yourself. When we think of how we fall in love with other people, you think about dating them, you think about getting to know them, seeing if their values align with your values. Is that not what falling in love is? Is that not the process, the action of falling in love? Is taking the time to connect. I think carving out your value systems and carving out exactly what your love language is and how you want to be loved can better inform you about yourself and how you need to approach yourself to feel actual self-love. Falling in love with yourself is literally the same process of falling in love with another person. The only thing is, you are both of the people in the relationship. It's you and yourself. And so how do we do this? How do we date ourselves? How do we get to know ourselves? How do we build that deep, loving bond and connection with ourselves and really feel it on a deeper level so we can start to love ourselves and actually value ourselves? So much of us go about our lives spouting beliefs that we believed for so long without ever doing any of that internal investigation, without ever asking why we believe in this. Does it contradict this aspect of our life? Does it make us feel good or bad? Does it make us feel guilty? Do we feel fear around it? These are things that we have to start paying attention to. Whether that be religion, politics, belief systems, it really doesn't matter. Most of what we know now and believe in now was taught to us by other people. And I'm not saying you can't believe in it still just because it was told to you by someone. Obviously, information has to be delivered somehow. You have to explore how you feel about those beliefs, if they resonate with you, and if you even still agree with them. That can even be a surface level as you going to a new restaurant, trying a new cuisine, and taking the time to examine if you like it. If you don't like it, are there any biases you have about this flavor palette that you've been told by other people? Is that impacting your decision on liking it or not liking it now? And I know that seems like trivial and that seems like, okay, you're talking about food here. What does that have to do with self-love? It has to do with self-love because you're getting to know yourself. And if you're dating someone, wouldn't you want to know their likes and dislikes for real? Wouldn't you want to get vulnerable and deep with them and know them truly? I think like anybody would appreciate that when it comes to someone else. So why not do it for yourself? Even the most trivial thing. So start investigating your likes, your dislikes, your beliefs, your values. Start having those conversations and speak candidly with yourself. Be fucking for real. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone I didn't trust. And what destroys trust? Lying, deceiving, making promises they can't fulfill, telling me they're going to do something and then not doing it or doing the fucking complete opposite. If you look in the mirror, you might find that you do a few of those things to yourself. You need to build a foundation of self-trust and self-loyalty. When you build self-trust, you build self-loyalty by having great follow-through for yourself, by making promises and fulfilling them to yourself, and by building up things in your own life. And I'll give some examples here. For me, for example, I am someone who has never really been the most consistent with working out. I do value it and I think it's important. Sometimes I just don't have time. So I wasn't following through, and sometimes I didn't have the strength yet. Sometimes I just didn't have the ability to work out for that level of duration, because that's something you build up when you work out. You start out with smaller reps, less weight, and then you build up to more strength. But here I was giving myself these goals of doing like 50 push-ups in one day. Meanwhile, I could barely do 10. Sometimes the system does need to be reassessed and improved to work well within what you're able to provide. Because if you keep setting these high goals for yourself that have all of these steps that you probably cannot accomplish, and then you don't follow through with them, of course you're not going to trust yourself to follow through anymore. Well, why did you set that up for yourself in the first place? To build self-trust, you need to follow through on the promises you make to yourself. So those promises better be fucking realistic to promises you could fulfill for yourself. So self-trust and self-loyalty are a little bit different. I feel like both of them involve consistency, but where self-loyalty is really real for me is when it comes to living in alignment with my values. Those values were determined by me doing that introspection, figuring out what I like, what I don't like, what I'm okay with, what I believe in, all of that stuff. And then I have to act upon my values, and I have to act upon them in every aspect of my life. And that is easier said than done. Living within your values is tough. It really is. And a lot of people like to think that they have integrity and like self-loyalty and they live within their values, but then they don't. And self-loyalty is not giving a fuck about the validation of others. It is only caring about the validation of you and your values, because your values are like the basis of your relationship with yourself. They're the basis of your relationship with anyone. They're the basis of your life. For me, transparency is a big value of mine. If I feel like something's wrong, I'm going to open a conversation about it, and I'm going to open up that can of worms. And if it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable, but it's something that I feel like needs to be talked about because, again, I appreciate transparency and I appreciate clarity and communication. That is not easy for some people to deal with. There are tons of people who consider me argumentative even, or consider me a negative person because I tend to talk about things that are uncomfortable, that make people a little bit uncomfortable because they're vulnerable or they're something nobody wants to talk about but is causing issues and I feel like need to be talked about. That is a value of mine. So I live within my values and I know it's going to piss people off. Living within your values means living for yourself and being loyal to yourself despite the opinions of others. Self-loyalty really does boil down to taking yourself fucking seriously, honestly, taking yourself seriously. Perfectionism is a form of procrastination. You get so focused on this idealized version of what success should be that it blinds you from being able to access true success because you won't act upon something for fear that you will fail in other people's eyes. For example, when I was building my photography career in my early 20s to mid 20s, I thought to be a successful photographer, I had to be in vogue at some point. Since, I was working retail jobs trying to fund my photography career. I had outdated equipment. I had no resources to anybody in the scene. I was like trying to carve myself in New York City from scratch. And I would always beat myself up and sometimes even like cancel projects because I felt like I was not capable enough, because I was not seeing the success that these other people had. I was literally in like this vicious cycle of idolizing and pedestalizing the people around me, not giving myself credit, therefore turning down jobs that would essentially get me closer to those people that I was pedestalizing, and then just repeating that shit over and over again. I was shooting my beginning portfolio on a Nikon D3100. Which is an entry-level crop sensor camera. And at the time, I couldn't appreciate the amount of lessons that camera or the lack of equipment provided me, but really it's made me such a resourceful creative. And, I look back now at my earlier portfolio work, and honestly, it's some of my favorite work that I've had because I was like my most creative, my most resourceful. Comparing yourself to other people, not humanizing yourself, not taking into consideration that you might not have all the resources that other people have. You might not have access to things that other people have. The point is, their life path should have nothing to do with you. The more you can internalize the fact that you are a human and your path is worthy and just as valid as someone else's, the more you will find that you will actually love the life you've lived. I think to really love yourself, you have to get clear on what your definition of success is. and create the standards for yourself. Do not base it off of other people because you just don't live their life. Do yourself that disservice. You are more than worthy and your life should be pedestalized, not theirs. You should be living life in accordance with your own Bible, with your own principles, with your own values, with the knowing of who you are, really deep down who you are, with what your love language is. And that, I would say, should be at the forefront of your mind. And that might seem selfish to some people, but again, I make compromises for other people because I love other people. But I do also value the love that I have for myself. I value the love that I have for myself, I would say similarly to the love I have for other people. It's to me equal in value. And I think our self-love should be approached that way, as equal as we can to the love that we have for other people. And our existence is worthy of love, just like everyone else's existence is. And so that concludes today's video. I hope that was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas on how you can explore self-love within your own life. And yeah, I think that was such a nice video to kind of create and talk about. I think this was a great topic, and I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.